The movie also suggests that Moses was in fact a copycat of a man named Sargon. And so they suggest that, well, maybe Moses didn't really exist either. And they point out some similarities to him, to Sargon, placed in a basket, set adrift in a river to avoid infanticide, and then rescued and raised by royalty. Well, exactly who was Sargon, first of all? The text that we have, this is probably referring to Sargon II from 721 to 705 BC, is when he reigned. And here is the text. I'll just read this for you. Now, the date range, we just don't know. It could be talking about Sargon of Akkad, the first one, who lived somewhere between 2200 BC, approximately. But this could be a very late text as well, 627 BC. So there's a very wide range. Anyway, it says, Sargon, strong king, king of Akkad am I. My mother was a high priestess. My father I do not know. My paternal kin inhabit the mountain region. My city of birth is Azupiranu, which lies on the bank of the Euphrates. My mother, a high priestess, conceived me. In secret she bore me. She placed me in a reed basket. With bitumen she caulked my hatch. She abandoned me to the river from which I could not escape. The river carried me along to Aki, the water drawer. It brought me. Aki, the water drawer, when immersing his bucket, lifted me up. Aki, the water drawer, raised me as his adopted son. Aki, the water drawer, sent me to his garden. During my garden work, Ishtar loved me, so that 55 years I ruled as king. Well, you have some, what would seem to be apparent similarities, but there are some things, of course, that even though they look similar, would not warrant this being a copycat. First of all, this could have been written well after the time of Moses. If, in fact, this was talking about Sargon II in the 7th or 8th century, sometime in there, then that's well after the time of Moses, even by liberal scholars who suggest that Moses and the Exodus was around 1250. This is about 500 years later. But as far as the secrecy factor surrounding the birth in Exodus is quite clear why the secrecy is needed. Moses is in serious danger of being killed. Sargon's story gives no reason for the secrecy, but the social background explains it. As a high priestess, Sargon's mother had to avoid pregnancy to hold her office. Such high priestesses were normally members of the royal house, and hence Sargon had a claim to royalty. There was nothing about Moses' mother that would stand as a parallel, though his father's descent from Levi had some significance. Therefore, the secrecy touch point bears the hallmark of a coincidence. It is one point out of many, and the rest do not match. They make sense in each case within a composite whole that makes borrowing unlikely in either way. In addition, Sargon's unknown father indicates an illegitimate birth, which is not paralleled in Exodus. And then the second, placing in a reed basket covered with bitumen. Well, the placing in a reed basket, of course, you would need to seal it so that it doesn't sink down to the bottom. In Moses, we have a logical explanation. His mother wanted to save him. She was afraid that he would be killed. She was ordered to kill her son, but of course she didn't want to do that. And so she put him in a little basket, made it so that it would float, and she wanted to save her son. It would appear that Sargon's mother wanted to get rid of him, but perhaps she just couldn't bring herself to kill her own child, and so she thought, well, maybe I'll just put him in a reed basket and let him float away, and the river will do with him what it will. And so maybe that was one way, if this is even a true account. And of course, the verbs that describe the action of Sargon's mother mean to throw or to cast down, or another secondary sense of to abandon. So it doesn't seem that she was truly trying to care for her child, but she was just trying to get rid of him in any event. And then thirdly, the setting in a river. Again, that's a great way to get rid of him without actually having to kill him. And then fourth, the recovery and adoption. Well, it's not uncommon to see adoption in the ancient world. And if you are the person that goes down to the river to draw water for the king, you see a little baby there, what are you going to do? You either let him go or you pick him up. So if indeed this is a true story, which it may be, we can't say that it's not, then Aki would have been the logical person to be there and to pick him up. And it is possible that he did find Sargon II in the water. But in any event, what we have is we could either have two parallel stories, or we could have a story that was influenced by the Bible itself. But you see, what the scholars want us to believe is that everything, not even the scholars, but especially these conspiracy people want us to believe that everything, that the Bible borrowed everything from other sources. But when we look at the sources, we see that that just cannot be the case here. So that brings me to the end, and there are some sources and further resources I'd just like to point out. One of my major resources for this talk was preventingtruthDecay.com. I would really encourage you to go there if you want to do more study on that. You can also do tectonics.org, copycat/Sargon, and other things by J.P. Holding, an excellent scholar. I cited him several times. You can also go to carm.org. That's a Christian Apologetics and Research Ministry, just to get a little broader approach on some of the supposed Bible difficulties. Answers in Genesis is a great website. Two books I'd like to point out: Gleason Archer's Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties, and then When Critics Ask, Norman Geisler and Thomas Howe. These all give excellent and plausible answers to some of the difficulties that we find, supposed difficulties that we find in Scripture.